I need to tell someone what I did, and you're going to think I'm terrible, but there's something about that night nobody understands. Everyone's been asking me why Mark left. Why he packed his bags 3 days after the company holiday party and moved in with his brother without giving me a real explanation. Why he won't talk to our friends, won't respond to my family's texts, won't even tell his own mother what happened. He just keeps saying ask her whenever anyone presses him, and then he goes silent. But here's the thing, I know exactly why he left. And the worst part, I can't tell anyone the real reason either, because if I do, everything falls apart in a way that's so much worse than people thinking I'm just some cheating wife who got caught. I kissed Daniel from accounting at the party. That much is true. Mark saw it happen. That's also true. But if that was the whole story, Mark would have screamed at me. He would have told everyone. He would have played the victim, gotten sympathy, maybe even gotten revenge. Instead, he went completely silent, and that silence is eating me alive because I know what it means. I'm going to tell you everything, including what Mark and I did 6 months before that party. And the part that makes me look worst. I'm saving that for near the end because you need to understand how we got here first. You need to see the full picture of our marriage, the agreements we made, and the lie we've been living. Let me start with the party itself, because that's where everyone thinks the story begins. The company always went overboard for the December party. This year it was at the Riverside Hotel, open bar, DJ, the whole setup. I wore a green dress that Mark had complimented when I tried it on that morning. He'd kissed my shoulder and said I looked beautiful. We drove there together. We walked in holding hands. That's what's so messed up about all of this. We weren't fighting. We weren't on the rocks. 3 hours before I kissed Daniel, Mark and I were actually happy, or at least doing a really good job pretending to be. Daniel had been flirting with me for weeks. Nothing serious, just those little moments in the break room where he'd stand a bit too close, or he'd compliment my presentations in a way that felt more personal than professional. He was younger than me by about 5 years, one of those guys who somehow makes a button-down shirt look casual. I'd noticed him noticing me, and I won't lie, it felt good. Mark and I had been married for 7 years, together for 10. We'd fallen into that comfortable pattern where we could predict each other's sentences, where sex happened on a schedule, where how was your day got answered with fine because the truth required too much energy. I loved him. I really did. But somewhere along the way, we'd become roommates who occasionally remembered to act like lovers. At the party, Mark got pulled into a conversation with his boss about some project deadline. I went to the bar, ordered a gin and tonic, and that's when Daniel appeared next to me. "You look incredible," he said, and the way he looked at me made me feel like I was the only person in the room. We talked. We laughed. He touched my arm when he made a joke. I didn't pull away. 3 drinks in, the DJ played some throwback song from college and Daniel asked me to dance. I should have said no. I should have gone to find Mark. Instead, I let Daniel lead me to the floor, and when he pulled me close during a slow song, I let that happen too. Just when I thought I'd gotten away with dancing a little too close with a coworker, Daniel leaned in and kissed me. And here's the part I'm most ashamed of, I kissed him back. For maybe 3 seconds, maybe 5, I let myself feel wanted in that desperate, exciting way I hadn't felt in years. Then I opened my eyes and saw Mark standing near the dessert table, staring directly at us. Our eyes met. His face didn't show anger exactly. It showed something worse. Recognition, maybe, or confirmation of something he'd already suspected. He turned and walked toward the exit before I could even push Daniel away. "I have to go," I said, practically running after Mark. I caught up with him in the parking lot. He was leaning against our car, keys in his hand, looking at the ground. "Mark, I'm so sorry, I don't know what I was thinking, I'd been drinking and it didn't mean anything." He looked up at me and his expression was so calm it scared me. "Get in the car." We drove home in complete silence. Not angry silence that I could have handled. This was something else, something hollow. When we got home, I tried again. "Please talk to me. Please yell at me or something. I messed up. I know I messed up." "I'm sleeping in the guest room," he said. "We'll talk tomorrow." But we didn't talk tomorrow or the next day. Mark went to work, came home, ate dinner, and acted like I didn't exist. When I tried to bring it up, he'd just say I'm thinking and walk away. Everyone online thought things were fine. I posted a picture of our Christmas tree that week with some caption about holiday cheer. 34 likes. "You guys are so cute together," someone commented. Meanwhile, Mark hadn't made eye contact with me in 72 hours. On the 3rd day, I came home from work and found him packing a suitcase. "What are you doing?" "I'm staying with James for a while." "Because of the kiss?" "Mark, it was one stupid kiss. I'll quit my job. I'll never see Daniel again. Please, can we just talk about this?" He zipped the suitcase closed and finally looked at me. Really looked at me. You want to talk about it, fine. Tell me the truth, did you sleep with him? What? No, it was just a kiss, a drunk, stupid kiss. Right, he said, and something about the way he said it made my stomach drop. I swear to you, I never slept with Daniel, I never slept with anyone else. I know, Mark said quietly, I believe you. Then why are you leaving? Because of what we did, Claire, you know exactly why. And there it was, the thing I'd been terrified he'd bring up. The thing that made everything so much more complicated than a simple case of infidelity. I watched him carry his suitcase to his car. I didn't try to stop him again because I understood. God help me, I understood completely. Here's what you need to know. About 6 months ago, Mark and I went to marriage counseling. We'd been feeling disconnected, going through the motions, and I'd suggested we try therapy before things got worse. Our therapist, Dr. Weinstein, was nice enough. She had us do all the typical exercises. Communication worksheets, weekly date nights, gratitude journals. Nothing worked. We were still polite strangers living in the same house. After about 3 months of sessions, Mark brought up something during a particularly honest appointment. He said he wondered if our problem was that we'd only ever been with each other. We'd started dating in college. Neither of us had much experience before we met. He asked, in this careful, vulnerable way, if maybe we needed to explore what else was out there before we could truly appreciate what we had. Dr. Weinstein did not recommend this. She was very clear about that. But she also said that some couples created alternative arrangements that worked for them, and if we wanted to discuss it, we could. We discussed it, for weeks. We set boundaries, rules, timelines. We decided to try an open marriage for 6 months. Just 6 months to get it out of our systems. We could each pursue one other person, no emotional attachment, complete honesty with each other about everything. The rules were specific: no coworkers, no friends, no one in our social circle. We'd tell each other before anything happened. We'd use protection. We'd check in regularly about our feelings. And most importantly, we'd keep it completely private. No one could know, not our friends, not our families, not anyone. We shook hands on it like it was a business deal. Looking back, that should have been my first sign that we were making a massive mistake. Mark met someone first. Her name was Allison. He found her on some app for people in open relationships. She was a divorced accountant from the next town over. He told me about her before their first date, showed me her picture, answered all my questions. Then he went to meet her at a wine bar, and I sat on our couch eating ice cream and trying not to vomit from anxiety. When he came home that night, we sat in bed and talked about it. He said it was nice, that she was interesting, that they'd kissed at the end of the night. He asked if I was okay. I lied and said I was fine. He saw Allison 6 times over 2 months. He slept with her 3 times. I know because he told me every detail just like we'd agreed. And every time he told me, I felt like I was swallowing glass, but I smiled and nodded because this was my idea too. We'd both agreed. I didn't get to be hurt. I tried to find someone, I really did. I went on a few dates with a guy named Ryan I'd met at a bookstore. Nice guy, completely boring. We had dinner twice and I couldn't imagine touching him. I told Mark it wasn't working out, and he seemed almost relieved. Then Mark ended things with Allison. He said he'd gotten what he needed from the experience and didn't want to continue. He said he was ready to focus on us again. I felt like I could breathe for the first time in 2 months. We went back to Dr. Weinstein and told her the experiment was over. She asked how we felt about everything. Mark said he felt grateful for what we had. I said I felt the same. We both lied about how much the whole thing had damaged us. We agreed to close the marriage again. The 6-month window wasn't even up yet, but we decided we were done. We were going to rebuild our relationship the right way, go back to being just us. That was 4 months before the Christmas party. During those 4 months, we actually did better for a while. We had sex more often. We talked more. We made plans for the future. We even started looking at houses in better school districts because we'd been talking about maybe trying for a baby next year. But here's what I didn't tell Mark: the whole open marriage thing had awakened something in me. Some need for external validation that I couldn't quite put back to sleep. I found myself dressing nicer for work, wearing makeup more often, noticing when men noticed me, and I noticed Daniel noticing me. I didn't pursue anything. I really didn't. We'd closed the marriage. That agreement was over. But I also didn't shut down Daniel's flirting as firmly as I should have. I let those breakroom conversations go on a little too long. I laughed a little too hard at his jokes. The night of the party when Daniel kissed me, it felt like permission I'd been waiting for. Even drunk, some part of my brain thought technically we'd agreed to 6 months. It had only been 4 months since we'd closed things. Maybe the window was still open. Maybe this was still allowed. except it wasn't. We'd explicitly ended the arrangement. And even if we hadn't, Daniel was a coworker. That broke our most important rule. But the absolute worst part, the thing that makes me want to crawl out of my skin, is that I kissed Daniel partially because I was angry at Mark for getting to have Allison while I chickened out with Ryan. Some petty, vindictive part of me thought I deserved this, that it was only fair. When Mark said, because of what we did, he meant all of it. The kiss wasn't just infidelity. It was proof that our open marriage experiment had poisoned something in our relationship that we couldn't get back. It was evidence that we'd broken something fundamental by inviting other people into our bed, even with rules and boundaries and good intentions. And the reason Mark wouldn't tell anyone why he left, because telling them would mean admitting what we'd done. It would mean exposing our open marriage to everyone we knew. Our parents, who wouldn't understand. Our friends, who would judge us. His coworkers, my coworkers, everyone in our conservative suburban community who still thought marriage meant one man, one woman, forsaking all others till death do you part. Mark's silence was protecting both of us from that exposure. Even furious with me, even hurt enough to leave, he was still keeping our secret. Because if people knew about the open marriage, they wouldn't just judge us. They'd never see us the same way again. I thought about telling people myself, about taking away Mark's leverage by exposing everything first. But I couldn't do it. I was too ashamed, too aware of how it would sound. Well, actually, we had an open marriage for a while, so really this is all very complicated. No one would sympathize with that. They'd just think we were perverts who'd ruined a good thing by being greedy. So I kept quiet too. When my mom called crying, asking what happened, I just said Mark and I were having problems and needed space. When my best friend Jessica demanded details, I said I didn't want to talk about it yet. When people at work whispered about the party, I pretended I didn't hear them. Daniel tried to apologize to me the next week at work, cornered me by my car, and said he felt terrible about kissing me, that he'd been drunk and misread the situation. I told him it was fine, we were both adults, let's just forget it happened. The relief on his face almost made me laugh. He had no idea the magnitude of what that kiss had destroyed. I became that woman you see on social media who's clearly falling apart but keeps posting like everything's fine. Pictures of my lunch with treating myself, captions. Throwback photos with missing the good times tags. Every post was a lie, and every comment that said you okay got a response of yes. Just busy with work. Meanwhile, I wasn't sleeping. I was eating maybe one meal a day. I lost 8 pounds in 2 weeks. I called Mark 17 times before I finally accepted that he wasn't going to answer. I drove by his brother's place twice like some kind of stalker before I realized how pathetic that was. Just when I thought I'd hit bottom, Mark's mom called. Sweet, wonderful Patricia who'd always treated me like the daughter she never had. Claire, honey, I don't know what's going on, but Mark won't talk to me. He says I need to ask you, so I'm asking, what happened? I started crying, the kind of ugly crying where you can't catch your breath. I messed up, Patricia, I really messed up. Did you cheat on him? It's complicated. It's a yes or no question, sweetheart. I kissed someone at a party Mark saw. There was a long pause. That's it, just a kiss. Just a kiss, I confirmed, hatting myself for the technically true lie. Then my son is being ridiculous. People make mistakes, you work through them. I'm going to call him right now and tell him. No, I said quickly. Please don't, he needs space, we both do. Claire, you've been married 7 years, you don't throw that away over one kiss. If only she knew. If only I could tell her that the kiss wasn't the problem. The kiss was just the symptom of a disease we'd invited into our marriage ourselves. But I couldn't say that, so I just thanked her and promised to keep her updated. 3 weeks after Mark left, I finally got a text from him, not a call, a text. We need to talk about the house and finances. Can we meet somewhere public? My heart sank. Public meant he didn't trust himself alone with me, or maybe he didn't trust me. Either way, it meant we were really done. We met at a coffee shop halfway between our house and his brother's place. Mark looked terrible. He'd lost weight too, dark circles under his eyes, hair unwashed. It almost made me feel better knowing he was suffering too, and then I hated myself for thinking that. I want a divorce, he said before I even sat down completely. The words hit me like a physical blow, even though I'd been expecting them. Mark, please, can we try counseling again? Can we just talk about this? What's there to talk about, Claire? You kissed another man, after we closed the marriage. After we agreed to work on us. I know it was wrong, but it was one kiss, one stupid, meaningless. It wasn't meaningless, he interrupted. That's the problem, it meant everything. It meant that what we did broke something in you too, it meant we can't come back from this. We can, I pleaded. People recover from worse. people recover from actual affairs not when they've already invited the affair into the marriage legally. Don't you get it? We destroyed our own foundation. We can't rebuild on broken ground. I watched him pull out a folder with divorce papers he'd already filed, already talked to a lawyer, already decided our marriage was over. You're not going to tell anyone about the open marriage? I asked quietly. No, I'm going to let people think whatever they want, that you cheated, that I cheated, that we just grew apart. Whatever story you want to tell it. I don't care anymore. Your family thinks I'm a monster. My family doesn't know the full story, neither does yours. So we both just live with everyone's judgment, everyone thinking we failed for the wrong reasons. Mark leaned back in his chair and looked at me with something like pity. We failed for exactly the right reasons, Claire. We thought we could have everything. We thought we could keep what we had and still explore what else was out there. We were wrong, and now we pay the price. I still love you, I whispered. I know, he said. I still love you too. But love isn't enough when you've poisoned the foundation it's built on. He left the papers on the table and walked out. I sat there for 45 minutes, staring at the petition for dissolution of marriage, while my coffee got cold and the barista kept glancing at me with concern. I signed the papers 2 days later. Mark was right. We couldn't come back from this. Not because of the kiss itself, but because of what the kiss represented. Every compromise we'd made, every boundary we'd pushed, every time we'd chosen exploration over commitment had led to this moment. The divorce went through quickly. We didn't have kids. We split assets fairly. Mark got the house because I couldn't stand to live there anymore with all its ghosts. I moved into a small apartment across town and started over at 33 years old. People asked questions, of course. I gave vague answers. We grew apart. We wanted different things. Sometimes love isn't enough. All technically true, all completely misleading. Jessica was the only one who pushed hard enough that I almost broke. She cornered me one night with wine and demanded the real story. You don't just throw away a 7-year marriage over one kiss at a Christmas party. Something else happened. What happened? I wanted to tell her so badly. I wanted to explain that Mark and I had tried to be progressive and evolved and open-minded, and it had destroyed us. I wanted to confess that I'd kissed Daniel partially out of spite, partially out of some twisted idea that I was still owed something from our failed experiment. Instead I just said, we had problems for a while, the kiss was just the final straw. What kind of problems? The kind I can't talk about. She stared at me for a long moment. Did you guys have some kind of arrangement? My face must have given something away because her eyes went wide. Oh my God, you did. You had an open marriage or something. I can't talk about this, I said firmly. Claire, I can't. Jessica, please don't ask me again. She didn't, but I could see in her eyes that she'd figured it out at least partially. And I could see her judgment, her confusion about why we'd ever think that was a good idea. I never brought it up with her again, and neither did she, but our friendship was never quite the same after that night. I thought about Mark constantly. I looked at his social media even though I knew it was unhealthy. He didn't post much, but when he did, he looked okay, better than okay eventually. There were pictures of him with friends, pictures of him at his brother's kid's birthday party. He looked like someone who was healing. I wasn't healing. I was existing. Going to work, coming home, eating dinner alone, watching TV until I was tired enough to sleep without thinking too much. I went on a few dates that went nowhere. I considered moving to a different city where no one knew me or my story. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I ran into Daniel at a restaurant. He was with a date, some pretty blonde who laughed at everything he said. He saw me, went pale, and gave me this awkward wave. I nodded back and pretended to be fascinated by my menu. That kiss that had helped end my marriage meant nothing to him. He'd probably forgotten about it entirely until he saw me. Meanwhile, it had become the central event in my life's biggest failure. The unfairness of it made me angry in a way I hadn't let myself feel before. Angry at Daniel for kissing me. Angry at Mark for suggesting the open marriage. Angry at myself for agreeing to it. Angry at Dr. Weinstein for not shutting down the idea immediately. Angry at the whole world for making monogamy feel like the only valid option, but also making it feel impossibly hard. But mostly I was angry that I couldn't tell the real story. That Mark and I had to carry this secret separately, protecting each other even in our separation. That everyone got to make up their own narrative about why we failed, and none of those narratives were true. I started writing it all down about a year after the divorce. Not to publish or share, just to process. To see if telling the truth to a blank page would help me understand where everything went wrong. I wrote about the counseling sessions, the agreement, Mark's time with Allison, my failed attempt with Ryan. The way we thought we could close Pandora's box after we'd already opened it. I wrote about the Christmas party, about Daniel's kiss, about the look on Mark's face when he saw us. I wrote about the 3 days of silence, about Mark packing his bags, about that conversation in the parking lot where we both knew exactly why everything was ending but couldn't say it out loud to anyone else. Writing it out didn't make me feel better, but it did make things clearer. Mark and I hadn't failed because we were bad people. We'd failed because we'd tried to solve an emotional problem with a logical solution. We treated our marriage like a business arrangement that could be optimized and negotiated rather than a living thing that needed nurturing and protection. The open marriage hadn't been the problem itself. The problem was that we'd chosen it because we were already broken and didn't want to admit it. We thought new experiences would fix our boredom, our disconnect, our slow drift apart. Instead, they just exposed how far we'd already drifted. I'm telling you all of this now, 2 years after that Christmas party, because I finally understand something important. Mark was right to leave. Not because I kissed Daniel, but because both of us had already left the marriage long before that night. We'd left it when we decided other people could fill the gaps we'd created. We'd left it when we started treating intimacy like a commodity that could be shared and traded. We'd left it when we stopped fighting for each other and started looking for escape routes. The kiss was just the excuse we needed to finally acknowledge what we'd done. People still don't know the real reason Mark left. His family thinks I'm the cheating wife who broke their son's heart. My family thinks Mark overreacted to a minor indiscretion. Our friends have chosen sides based on incomplete information. And Mark and I let them, because the truth is too complicated, too shameful, too revealing of who we really are beneath our respectable suburban facade. Sometimes, I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't kissed Daniel. If Mark and I would have kept pretending the open marriage experiment hadn't damaged us. If we'd have had a baby and built that house and lived another 20 years in quiet resentment, never acknowledging the poison we'd introduced. Maybe the kiss was a gift in its own terrible way, a catalyst that forced us both to admit defeat. I saw Mark one more time, about 6 months ago. We ran into each other at a mutual friend's wedding. He was there with a date, a woman named Sarah who seemed nice. Normal. Someone who probably never suggested they try anything unconventional, who'd never heard of ethical non-monogamy, who just wanted a regular marriage with a regular guy. I was alone. I'm still alone. I date occasionally, but I haven't found anyone I can imagine building a life with. More importantly, I haven't figured out who I am outside of my marriage to Mark. I'm still that woman who kissed her coworker at a Christmas party, still the villain in a story where I'm also the victim. Mark and I made eye contact across the reception hall. He gave me a small nod. I nodded back. No words exchanged. No drama. Just two people who'd once loved each other very much and destroyed that love through a series of well-intentioned terrible decisions. The worst part about what happened isn't what you think. It's not the kiss. It's not even the open marriage. It's that Mark and I will never get to tell our real story. We'll never get the understanding or sympathy or even the honest judgment we deserve. We'll always be the couple who ended over a Christmas party indiscretion, and the truth will stay buried with us. I think about telling people sometimes. About just posting the whole story on social media, or telling my mom, or calling up Patricia and explaining everything. But I never do it. Because Mark's silence protects me as much as it protects him. And because some part of me knows that telling wouldn't change anything anyway. People don't want complicated stories. They want clear villains and victims. They want simple explanations for why marriages fail. They want to believe that if you just follow the rules, stay faithful, communicate well, you'll be fine. Mark and I broke their rules and we paid the price. That's the story they understand. Everything else is just noise. So here I am, 2 years later, finally telling someone the truth. Not for absolution or sympathy. Not to change anyone's mind about what happened. Just to put it somewhere outside my own head. To make it real by sharing it, even if I'm sharing it with strangers who'll never know my name or see my face. I kissed my coworker at the party. My husband saw, left, and won't tell anyone why. And now you know what no one else does, that the kiss was just the final crack in a foundation we'd already demolished ourselves. That we were both complicit in our failure. That some mistakes can't be fixed, only survived. And that sometimes the people you love most are the ones you hurt worst, even when you're both trying your best not to.